Hey everybody, my name is Garrett Hartle, and over the last week or so, the reptile community has been in an uproar over some pretty crazy stuff going on revolving some photos that were released that were taken at Slither Inc. You guys have questions, we have some answers. This video is for transparency on all that kind of stuff, so let's get into it. All right, so first off, there was a lot of photos that were released at this facility. The conditions that I can see in the photos are horrifying. We're not gonna show the photos here, but you can just do a search and I'm sure you'll find them online. Other YouTubers have already talked about all this kind of stuff. Even as a commercial snake breeder, I mean, I find that stuff completely unacceptable, what was going on in these pictures. So early on when this thing was released, you know, we had already been a part of the conversation. Like I said, I'd been, you know, interviewed and talked about by certain people that had context of what was going on there, and we really didn't. So I don't want to, you know, talk from anyone else's perspective or put words in anybody else's mouth. But what I do want to do is address, you know, what we know, what's going on here, because certainly there have been a lot of people either putting my image on, you know, thumbnails of videos or making all kinds of accusations in the absence of us, you know, jumping in there to address this directly. People have made up all kinds of stories about that. And so let's get into some of that. Some of the stuff has been so ridiculous that, I mean, I've literally seen people say that we knew all about this in advance because Rodney and I had actually taken a tour together of Slither Inc. And during that time I decided, ooh, I want to work with this guy, and he decided, hey, I don't. None of that ever happened. I've never actually even been to that facility. All the way down to claims like we had supplied him with his ocelot project, or whatever name he calls it down there. Again, I've never even owned an ocelot. So a lot of the stuff that's being said out there is just absolutely way off base. And there have been people who have tried to attach us to this from the beginning because, like I said, I think the photos and the stuff of the atrocities that are going down there are very emotionally compelling, and people are wanting to know, what do we do? That's a tough question, right? And if someone had a personal agenda of like, well, you should hate this person or that person, you know, we got kind of dragged into that. So one of the things that I had seen is that, you know, we were business partners with Slither all along, or we knew about all the stuff that was depicted in these pictures and everything in advance of their release, and neither of those are true. We have never done any business as far as like buying or selling snakes with them, and I'll tell you the totality of our relationship here in a second. That claim that I had been to his facility with Rodney or without Rodney or any time, you know, at any of his facilities is actually false. I have never been down there. I've never seen any of his collection or anything like that. The claim that I supplied him with, you know, projects and genetics, like his ocelot project, is absolutely asinine. I mean, that's a mainland project. I've never even had an ocelot or anything like that. And again, guys, like I don't really like scroll through the internet and see everything that everybody's saying, and, you know, conversations that go up. There might be review, whatever, response videos of this made. I don't see a lot of that stuff. So I don't know everything that's been said out there or will be said out there, but I can tell you what I do know from first person perspective now. So here's a brief history of, you know, the totality of my interactions with Samson or Slither Inc. from the beginning of time. So because Samson's been involved in retics for a very long time, the first time I ever actually heard of him or Slither Inc. or any of that was when I worked at Prehistoric Pets from 2010 to 2013, you know, working professionally with reticulated pythons. That opened up conversations with him that were, you know, just casual, you know, like snake-related conversations that began to happen at that time. Okay, fast forward now to where I had actually left Prehistoric, been away from them for a while, kind of done my own thing, and was starting to think about this business, Reach Out Reptiles, and starting it up. When I first had the, you know, the decision that I was going to specialize in dwarf and super dwarf retics, try to make them easier to maintain and manage for a greater number of people, I started getting rid of some of the other pets that I had. I had all kinds of crazy stuff, from lizards and snakes, all types of things, and included among those were some wild caught imported reticulated pythons that were localities that were not dwarf or super dwarf. There was 2 animals specifically that nobody else wanted, and I really can't blame them. I thought the animals were amazing, but they had horrible attitudes, and I really didn't want them going to somebody who didn't have a lot of experience handling large, bad attitude reticulated pythons, because I knew that that would end badly for the animal. So from that perspective, Slither was publishing online at the time that they were doing the Slither locality projects or whatever he was saying about it. This was, you know, after the import ban had gone through. I think it was around 2016 or 17. And so a conversation happened between he and I that he could have those snakes if he wanted them. And we talked about some locality stuff, what they were, and off they went. Then you can fast forward to another year or 2 later when Samson actually hatched some snakes from some wild-caught imported animals that were dwarf, super dwarf. They were Coyote locality, and I had known about the imported animals when they were with the previous owner who had never got them to breed. So when I heard that those animals bred and that they had end up over there at Slither, I talked to him, and he was kind of like, well, hey, you know, you gave me those pair of snakes. Here's some snakes for you. And I think it was, I mean, I don't even remember, honestly. They're downstairs. I'd have to count them, but something like 3 animals in return for the animals I had sent him a couple years prior. So this would have been 2019 now, 2-3 years after I had sent him the first 2 retics. And then that brings us to today, where earlier this year, before any of this, you know, information came out on what had gone on down there at Slither, I sent him another locality retic that was here in the shop that was not one that I worked with. That is the animal that started a lot of the discussions and rumors and lies and things like that. And again, that was an animal that I sent him absolutely for free. There was no, he didn't buy it or any of that. So from 2010-ish until today, the last 13 years, I've had casual, you know, friendly, usually snake-related conversations with him. I know a lot of times he'd talked about stuff that was going on with him and other people, and honestly, I don't know why anyone talks to me about that stuff. I really don't care, not in the whole drama scene. And I had sent him the 3 snakes total, you know, 2 of them back in like 2016 before I started the business, and then 1 earlier this year, because there were locality stuff that he was at least mildly interested in, and we were not, and I wanted to make sure that those animals went somewhere with somebody who had an interest in breeding them, and that's it. So those are all the animals I've ever sent to him or received from him throughout all of those years, not knowing any of the stuff that had happened, and kind of summarizes all of our interactions. And just for the record, like, had I known that these animals were going into these kinds of conditions, I never would have sent them. Kind of the problem in the reptile industry is that there's so many people that hate other people and will say anything untrue about them to kind of damage them, that when someone says something that is true, if it's the same person, they've kind of discredited themselves, right? Hopefully that fills in some of the blanks. I know that a week seems like an eternity if you're waiting from a response from somebody that has been attacked or people trying to drag their name through the mud. And, you know, over the years, ever since that first day that I started Reach Out Reptiles, literally in order to try to produce more manageable snakes for people that genetically and legitimately stayed smaller and could then be easier cared for, until today, we have been promoting the community, promoting education, promoting good husbandry of the animals, even as, I mean, I recognize that I am a commercial breeder of reptiles. But the question for me has always been, is there a way that you can do that that benefits not just the animals' lives that are here in our collection and the stuff, you know, that we do for them, but also like education and stuff that we can put out to help other people to do that, whether that's been through YouTube, making connections with other influencers, bringing the community together in Retic Fest, or any of that. So in light of all this kind of stuff, you know, I've had a little bit of time, just a little bit, to think about, you know, what does Reach Out Reptiles do moving forward from this? And this is not the kind of video I ever wanted to make or anything like that. I did want to say that, like, as a commercial breeder, I want you guys to know that those conditions, those things that are happening to those animals are unacceptable. Like I said, you can go see these videos and photos and stuff for yourself. Just be aware that some of the images are really traumatizing and can't be unseen. If you don't want to watch the images, you prefer to take my word for it that they're bad, I mean, my word on that is that that stuff is bad. So here's what I would like to do moving forward. I love this trend towards more transparencies where keepers and breeders have been doing videos of their facility, talking about their animal care, husbandry, stuff like that. We're going to continue to do that. I mean, obviously we release 3 videos a week here at Reach Out Reptiles and have for many years. I can't think of too many more transparent retic breeders than us, but an increase in that stuff, I think, and communication is always good. So you're welcome to stay tuned and you'll see a lot more of that. Also, I'd love to continue pushing for more advancements in husbandries. One of the first videos that we ever made, if you rewind, is like, hey, give these snakes something to climb up on with a shelf in their cage. And there's been so many different things that we've done. We've talked about everything from behavioral training, you know, the utilization of full spectrum lighting, all kinds of stuff that an animal could be benefited from in captivity. So I'd love to hear more ideas on advancements in those directions. Even if it's something like this is a big statement for perspective. I wanted to make a cage that was basically the equivalent of keeping a corn snake in a 40-gallon, right? But for a mainland retic. So we have this 20-foot plus cage for our 20-foot plus snake. Putting her in there and showing just what it does take to keep and maintain a full-size reticulated python versus something that is smaller and you know, more manageable. And so besides the transparency and using whatever platform that I have to continue to educate and help us all push to the next level, I mean, obviously I won't be sending any more animals to Samson. I wish I could take back the 3 that I had sent over time. So that's it, guys. Hopefully that fills in some of the blanks for those of you guys that were wondering what's going on here behind the scenes and stuff like that, or what do I mean when I say I've never done any business with Slither, and you're like, well, I heard that there was an animal that ended up down there of yours. What does that look like? I mean, that's, now you know. If you guys want to talk about it more, feel free to go ahead and do that in the comments section. And thanks again to all of you guys that have continued to support us online as a community with what we're doing for the snakes, or at least trying to do for the snakes and this community. We really appreciate you guys doing that kind of stuff, standing up for us, even if you didn't know all the details that you believed in us, you know, in the absence of whatever details we're missing. I know that none of that is really new news. It might not be that shocking, but without me speaking for anyone else, that's what I know about it. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time.
Spray your snake first.
Where you going, kid?
Dude, that's so freaking cool.
Oh, who said they don't need vertical climbing space? They're so good at it. They're so good at it. They need muscles. You can't do this for this whole video. You can't do this. You have to come back down. We'll let you climb after. How about that? You make a deal? Later, you can go play on the playground. Yeah? We'll do that.